Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So it depends upon the time when you're watching this video discussion. So welcome to my Could Leave It to philosophical discussion or exercise. So today class we will be talking about justice and fairness towards achieving, promoting the common good. So this has been an issue, and I guess all throughout the discussions in philosophy, politics, economics, and other forms of fields in the academy, looking or aiming for the common good. So what is really this thing that we call common good? Ethics, especially. In ethics, it is actually organized, established, and formed in order for the individuals in the society and the world as a whole to know exactly the common good. Of course, each of us have our own private individual goods, and that would be the welfare, my welfare, your welfare, and the other's welfare. But what about the welfare of the whole? So these things, we will be talking about these terms, justice and fairness. Of course, this is primarily focused on the theory and the philosophical discussion of John Rawls, so an American philosopher. So he was actually, focusing on justice as fairness. So he defined or defended justice as fairness. Although these two words has a very narrow relationship, it's very closed, very relative. If you say fairness, that's justice, right? So anyway, as we go along, we'll find out what these things or these words all about. So here I provided two differentiation about the two, fairness and justice. So when we say justice, it is part of the central core of morality. Of course, we cannot treat others with goodness, we cannot treat others with morals, with morality, and with in an ethical way if there's no justice. Of course, it is because of justice. Why would I look for, or why would I consider the good of others? Why would I consider treating them in a nice way? Diba? Why would I follow rules and regulations in the first place? Of course, that is because of justice. And this is somehow part of the central core. When we say central core, it's really the center of morality, the study of morality, and of course in the ethics as well. So fairness is, in the other hand, it is showing no bias towards some people or individuals. So of course, if you are a friend to two, so nuna kay duwa ka friends, of course, in the strict sense lang, looking at things. Of course, if tagaan mo siya gusto ka gift, tagaan ka naman the other, that's speaking of fairness. And also, if you're a parent of 3 children, 3 siblings, of course you will give one the same with the others because masuya ang usa or duwa. If usa rin mong tagaan, it would be called as favoritism, and the others might mag-resent yung uban, magdumot or something. The other one, justice, is giving each person what he or she deserves. So that is justice. Of course, like for example, you are working in an institution or in a company or organization. If you will not be given the enough wage that you deserve, of course that is injustice. That is injustice. And also, like racism. Let's say for example you are a black person and the other is white. So the ang pamunuan sa isang company will give a higher wage to the white person and give you a lesser wage. That is injustice as well. That is inequality. Also, justice can be another link to inequality, but we will be discussing that one as well. So the difference of these two is that justice is just more on the reference of the standard of rightness, kung unsa ka insakto ang usa ka butang or action. While fairness, it's somehow related or close to verb, no, to action. It is the ability to judge without reference to one's feelings or interests. So that's fairness. Wala kay bias, regardless the reference or the preference of the person. Like for example, imong tagaan duha ka tawo, you will not matter what's the preference of the color. For example, tagaan mo siya sapatos, no. So both of them should receive the same color, the same brand, the same not size, but the same price of the thing or the gift. So there should be no bias. It is regardless of their preference of color, preference of brand, and preference of model or something like that. All right. So here I will as you look at the picture, there are three situations now given equality versus equity. Let's say for example, where is this in which situation do these things, these terms differ from one another? Let's say for example equity. When we say equity, that's equal, no? You are given equal share. Let's say for example, so there's a game inside the fence. Of course, let's say for example what do you call that, arena or a court or something. So in the first image, it is assumed that everyone will benefit from the same supports. They are being treated equally. So the short person, the taas gamay kinatasan. So good for the tallest one and the taller one, kaya makakita, so they have an access. So they have the same, I guess they have the same pleasure, no, to the game. Kaya makakita man ang taller one and the tallest one. What about the short, ang pinaka maba? So even though that person has same share with the others, they have same, let's say for example, in that particular situation, that is very specific, no? It's just an access to the game. So in that particular situation, that's equity. They are given equal shares, but the shortest guy has not, rendered justice. Let's say na taga justisya to be given an equal share to the game, to enjoy pleasure, same pleasure with the other two guys. So in the second image, individuals are given different supports to make it possible for them to have equal access to the game. They are being treated equitably. Okay, so there's the thing that differ from one another. Actually, I have taken this this pictures from Google, but the first situation, I guess the word used is equally, so that's equal. But when we say equality, they should have same access to the game, equal access to the game. So that's not equality, that's equity, same. Like when you remember now that in a triangle, equilateral triangle, they have the same size. That's equity. Well, the other one, it seems like it's reversed. No, it's reversed. The other one, this is equally. If you could cite the the word from the situation number 2, second image. The individuals are given different supports to make it possible for them to have equal access to the game. So they have equal access to the game. So but the thing is, they are given different access, different support. So katong pinakamabaan, gitagaan siya mas taas-taas para makakita siya sa game. While the taller one, okay ra, maka-access siya. While the tallest one, dili na siya ka enough na yang kuan ang iyang height. What's the lesson here, class? Of course, very simple. In our society, we are indeed not equal. There are richer people, there are richest people, there are poor people. So during the crisis, for example, in this pandemic, in time pandemic right now, with the government were giving shares or giving relief, it would be in goods or in kind or in cash, but at least those in kind, those in cash should be given to those who are in need, to those who are poor. So magka-interest lang ang mga data nila. Of course, they have enough for them to support themselves. So that's giving to those who are really in need. So that in that particular scenario, we can say that there is an equality in a sense that katurang tagaan katong nanginahanglan nganong tagaan man nimo ang wala na, diba? So enough for that sa naa na dili na siya tagaan because he has enough, while those who don't have sila mo'y ang itagaan. So that's equality in a sense, because it's ang equity magaling in a sense it's strict into parallel size, equal size, same size. So magkuan na siya, same ra siya tanan. Equity, that's the same for all. So there's just a difference in that one. Well, the third situation is another way of looking at the situation. In the third image, all three can see the game without any supports or accommodations because the cause of the inequity was addressed. The systemic barrier has been removed. So in this particular case, instead of giving them supports, they can still enjoy the game, they can still have access to the game without this fence. So just by removing the barrier. So looking at our society, the barrier being talked in here is being discussed in here is the barrier, systemic barriers. What is this? Let's say for example, access to a just justice system, equal and just justice system. Kay madali madungog ang kaso if you have the money, you have the money to pay. But if you don't have, malangay pa na kayo, dugay pa kayo, it would take a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 until nga ma-dismiss. Or in some sense, if pobre ka and you are accused, you can be convicted easily if your opponent is dato and have a higher influence or connection to those in power. So that is the systemic barrier being discussed in here. There's no equality if there is this barrier, if there is this racism being playing as the barrier in every individual or in the society. Let's say for example, first come first serve basis na sa ato ang kaugalingon. Although yes, masunod man yun siya, but in some cases if kaning naulahi dunay access na, dunay kailad na close or relative or part of the family nga naa diha sa sulod nga nag-process, mas ma-expedite ang iya, mas mapadali ang process because dali ra kay mo diretso sa dito then i-process na. So that is not equality, that is injustice, because you are not following the rule, you're not following the regulation being executed. So the three here, it's either addressing this inequality, this injustice by giving them what they need, or by removing what hinders them on accessing what would benefit them, what would give them pleasure. Let's say for example education. Of course our very constitution gives us the right for education, but not all are given the privilege to study. That is because there is a systemic barrier hindering those people who want to study but do not have money, and that is the tuition fees, the miscellaneous, and the other fees in the university or the college or the school or the institution. So that hinders them. So in order for them to have the access to free education, to have equal privilege with those who have money. That's why there's an initiative for tagaan ng scholarships those who are deserving students, or either tagaan of free education like from the Negros Oriental State University. Equal, wala sila tuition, but in the condition they should pass all the requirements in the screening that would make an indication that they are deserving to enjoy the privilege. So here, what is really this common good? As I said earlier, common good, of course, this is for common interest now of every individuals in the society. But is that what is this thing that bind us together, all together, that would have us the same interests? What is this? So common good, that which benefits society as a whole. So it refers to either what is shared and beneficial for all or most members of a given community, or alternatively, what is achieved by citizenship, collective action, and active participation in the realm of politics and public service. Let's say, for example, in our society, what is this common good that we can cite? For example, of course, we would agree that if paying a tax would give common good to the society, because it will eventually it will be used for projects, for roads, for constructions of bridges and other public owned by government projects. So all people have access to those government buildings, government roads, and others, because in the first place it is not private. It is owned by government, owned by the people. So that particular project, I would say that is an example of the common good. And the other one is that let's say, for example, for the interest of the society. For example, in Dumaguete City, access to Wi-Fi. Let's say, for example, there would be, if there's a plan to install Wi-Fi now in the capital or in the Quezon Park or whatever area in any segments of the city, we would say that it's a common good, because many would have access to internet, especially those who do not have. If you would observe, I could observe, because by then I was still student of Negros Oriental State University. I have I don't have money to buy load for data. Of course, I would go to the Capitol grounds, and then the Masayas complex. There is also a free Wi-Fi in there before. I would stay there for an hour or 2 or 3 in order to make my project or reports, or else I would research for references, and then I will download it, and then I will finish my project here in my boarding house. Let's say, for example, I was doing that before. So I would say that that's also the common good for students. Alright? And also for the CR, the public CRs, that's for the common good, because everyone has access to it, and it's not private. So that is the common welfare. Let's talk about in the field of ethics. What is the common good for everyone? Of course, one of that is mutual respect. So it's common good for everyone to pay respect for each one of us, because if that will be violated, then we will say that's against the common good, because it binds us all together to be united. Because if we are not united, then there are certain things that's being violated, and that is that is accountable, or that person who violates the rules or law is, of course, subject to the law, to what is what is the corresponding punishment for that particular violation. Alright, let's talk about justice then. What is this justice? If you would only think about justice, of course you cannot think any definition at all, because justice is what we think is justice is only, it's only applicable to the laws, to the Supreme Court, to the Congress, the Senate, to courts, like that. To lawyers, something like justice is justice. Mingon tag ngayo tag hustisya sa pagkamatay, like for example no katong ipatay sa police dito sa I forget no the place katong mama ug anak. We are shouting for justice. We are clamoring for justice. We are seeking for justice. But what is justice? Because we think of justice as that for that man, there are others would think that that man should be punished by death penalty. Is that justice? To kill that person, or to you know to express your anger, your hatred to the child? Is that justice? Of course, that is not justice. Justice, of course, it would always cohere or agree or corresponds to law. What is dictated by law? Because laws are made, formed, promulgated for the public interest, for the common good of individuals. That's why in egalitarian doctrine, legal egalitarian doctrine, that we are all subject to the same laws. Wala tay discrimination, that the rich people are not dili siya dapat punishable by this law because dato siya kanira mga pobre. So that is, again, that is injustice, that is discrimination, that is unequal or inequality. So justice here is that placing each individual. This is for Plato. So let's start with the ancient definition of justice or conception of justice. So it means placing each individual and each class is in its proper place. So this is for Plato. Nga dapat it is justice if ang matag usa individual mabutang sa iyang proper place. So in Plato's political philosophy, there are three classes. The rulers, they are the politicians. Soldiers, they are the law enforcers, the military. Artisans, they are the peasants, the farmers, the workers, the laborers. So rulers are those people with the capacity or quality for higher higher mental capacity or rational capacity. Means bright, kung sa ato mga Bisaya, bright, genius. While soldiers are the spirited, sa akong discuss niyo before, it was just only referring to parts of the soul. But here, dili na ta sa social class nga gikuan ipasabot ni Plato. So spirited, these are the soldiers, while the appetitive are the workers. So when Plato's are referring to class or putting it into proper place, it is saying that those genius, those bright people should be placed on the ruler's class, while those who are having the capacity for, if not that genius, not that bright, but having that spirit for sustaining orderliness or protection for the society, that's for soldiers. The third one is for those who don't have those capacities or qualities. So they are the workers. So they are for the artisans. So how does Plato try to arrange this one? He said that in order for the child, since he said that the capacity or the quality of a child were not according to heredity, to blood, no? Na kung bright imong ginikanan, bright sab ka. No, Plato rejected the one. He said that capacity or the quality of every individual is his natural ability and is not hereditary. So that is why in order for them to be not influenced by the parents, the child should be surrendered to the state, and it is the state would instruct, would train them properly, and would categorize them kung asa sila nabutang ba sila sa rulers, the soldiers, or sa artisans. So ang state mo magbuot, because for him, if those rationals nga dili mabutang sa class sa rulers and dito siya mabutang sa soldiers, and the spirited mabutang sa artisans and dili sa soldiers, or appetitive mabutang sa artisans ang appetitive, instead yung worker siya, laborer siya, mabutang siya sa rulers. He said there would be injustice in the society. That's a no-no for him, because that would cause chaos, that would cause social unrest, and the society would remain would remain in a, when we say distorted, and there would be a lot of injustices in the society. So that's why he said these three classes, the soul of these three classes should be justice. It is justice that should remain the harmony of these three classes, and that by maintaining these people to their category or to their class. So ang asa ka, ang imong capacity na belong dito rig ka dapat, dili ka maadto sa rulers kung dili ka na belong sa rulers, so like such. All right, so let's proceed to Aristotle's justice now. So of course he said justice it is obeying the laws, because laws are first of course created for the public interest, for the common good, and of course that is acting what is just, what you conceive or what you think, what you believe to be just. So he said that Plato has two categories of justice, that is the general and the particular. So of course general justice is virtue expressed in relation to other people. He was talking about this is your pakikitungo nimo sa kapwa, that you're treating them justly, you're treating them according to laws, according to regulations, to rules. While particular justice is the correct distribution. So this is the other hand different. So this is more on economic sense, but can be applied to other sense. But going back to general justice, it is also treating others equally in terms of social welfare. So what is the things belong to particular justice? First, there is this rectificatory justice or commutative justice. So he said, called for in business where unfair advantage or undeserved harm has occurred. Let's say for example sa traders, no, of course kung ga-trade ka, you should pay your partner what the katong imong gipalit, what's the worth of the price of that particular, dili kay imo siyang dili siya kay imo siyang threat by force or whatsoever in order for you to take advantage. So that's why if you will do such, nga mo take advantage ka either by stealing, either by harming, either by showing superiority, so it demands remedies or compensations to the injured party. While the other one is distributive justice. So concerns what measurements should be used to allocate society's resources. So proportional equality. So unequal people, say for example, like the slaves, women by then was not treated equally, no, so get unequal shares. So here distributive justice, so it would talk about equality to share, to political rights and whatsoever. So here let's talk about distributive justice in the egalitarianism doctrine or the egalitarian doctrine. So in egalitarian, this is about the doctrine or a political doctrine that holds that all people should be treated as equals and have the same political, economic, social, and civil rights. Generally, it applies to being held equal under the law and society at large. In actual practice, one may be considered an egalitarian in most areas listed, so even if not subscribing to equality in every possible area of the individual difference. So the thing with egalitarianism is that it talks about there is actually two types of this, no, the philosophical one and the political one. Now let's talk about the political one. Political one, it's having equal rights in terms of politics, economics, social, and civil rights. Although this is very this is more relevant than sharing of goods, because sharing of goods will never be equal, especially that there are rich people, they are richer, and there are poor people. So we will never have the same, unless if we are living in a communist country. But still, it would not apply. As what I've said earlier, in the legal egalitarian, it is talking about the same laws for everyone, dili kay na discrimination. And then there was a question, or there is a question asking, at what scale or in what particular area should we be equal, aside from rights, legal rights, civil rights, social rights, economic rights, political rights? Because when we talk about economic rights, yeah, that will do. There are laws protecting every one of us in terms of economic, social, and civil. But in some sense, it cannot be, I don't know, applied fairly. That's why it should be, I don't know, it should be you know, like dunay kay ang imong opponent is a rich person having a higher influence and connections, then of course the other lugas ka. So if na maunay mo na kontra, although you're innocent, and that is the thing that perverts our justice system. And also even in the, I don't know, even in the you know, if you're applying a job and then your opponent, imong ka-rival in seeking for the job, has the influence in the company, of course you will dihado sa kanyana. So of course that are particular hindrance, and you know, seems like making this society unjust society. So in the other sense, let's say for example in the distributions, when we say distributions of goods, then we can say that it will not be the same, because we have different status. So of course we have the same dignity, we have the same that's common for all of us, so we're equal at status and standing. So everyone should be treated equally. That is a promulgation in the United States constitutions, that all are created equal. That means regardless of the status, you are rich or poor, you're old or young, you should be treated equally, not with discrimination, not with the color of race or whatsoever, gender or whatsoever. What about distributive justice through capitalism? We know that capitalism is an economic system in which the means of production of goods or services are privately owned and operated for a profit. Let's say for example, these corporations, these companies owned by private individuals, then this is the enemy of communism. On Karl Marx manifesto, no? Communism. This is a very effective doctrine, communism against capitalism. Because if you are going to look at it in the perspective of capitalism, how many are the owners of supermarket or SM? Of course there are few only. Well, the workers are, let's say, 100-fold than the owners. Sa mga tagiya, mas daghan pa, or thousands-fold mas kidaghanon nila. In every company, of course, there are a lot of workers. But kinsa may na dato? Of course, ang tagiya. Well, ang mga workers remain the same, poor, and then more, mas sila exert of mas dako nga effort, o mas dako nga share to the company. That's why this is very significant na the word alienation, because every individual who produced the product, who have designed the product, it is their own, but it is alienated from them because they are working from a company. So instead, it will nga mailat ang ilang ginama, it will not be theirs. Dili sila mo tagiya because they are only working for the company. That's alienated from them. That's alienation in the context of economy. So in the field of capitalism, so there is really kuan inequality in a sense nga mas dako sila trabaho, pobre sila, mas gamay sila share, while ang katong mga capitalists sila mo'y nadato o sila mo'y daghan kaayo benefits and privileges, mga profits is ilahara. So that is inequality, but in some sense, of course, I will also consider that there's equality still, because they are not in the first place who molded, who started the business. I guess the stories of Robinsons and SM and other companies cannot prosper. They started at a small scale business until they got there in their position right now. So that's justice for their end as well. That they have to enjoy the privilege of having up there, nagbingkod sila to enjoy the privileges because they labored so much on they labored enough already to achieve that particular seat or standing. Distributive justice through socialism. We know that socialism is against capitalism in a sense as well, because capitalism is owned by private individuals. Sila boy, like it's exclusive for them. While socialism is against capitalism in a sense nga the business or the company or the thing that control the property should be the people, owned by the people and shared by the people. So I guess this is relevant, or this is close. No, the example of this one, I guess, is the cooperative. Let's say, for example, Noreco, its members is being, it's being treated as owners, mga tagiya. But I do not know for sure what's going on in there, why there's no such priority given to members complaining for the services. And also, alright, socialism in its context, it is owned by the people. Now, as I said, the good example for this one is cooperative. Cooperative is like DCCO or PHCCI. They are shareholders of the company now, because that's why there is a share capital. That means they are owners, or one of the owners of the cooperative. So it should be controlled by the people. But the thing is this, I guess an economy that would be good, or that's great. But still, in the end, there's still elite people who would control the system, the company, as for sure. Let's say, for example, Noreco, in the case, kinsa may nadato niya na, of course, those shareholders. What about the members? The member remains the members, and in fact, if they cannot pay, maputlan po sila og services. So still, I guess there's no perfect system. It would be either socialism, capitalism, or what kind of egalitarian. I guess egalitarian, it has flaws as well in some sense. Alright, anyway, let's proceed. So, distributive justice and socialism, if it will be practiced strictly and by the rules, I guess, like for example in the PHC and DCCO, because they have shares now, and at the end of the year of the invested share capital, so naman sila share, depends upon their contribution. Okay, if gamay po lang contribution, gamay po lang share. So I guess in that sense, there is equality as well. So what about the distributive justice through communism? This is very controversial of communism, because it's a approach that was very effective. I am not sure what the particular time of the history where there was still revolution in China, and I guess it was happened already in Russia, then communism, and it spread to Vietnam, down to the communist states nga like North Korea as well. So communism is a philosophical, social, political, and economic ideology and movement whose ultimate goal is the establishment of a communist society, namely a socio-economic order structured upon the ideas of common ownership of the means of production and the absence of social classes, money, and the state. the things that we have to consider to take note here, there are these questions. How is government put into power at this through revolution? Because they have to wipe out the classes now, because according to Manifesto of Communism by Karl Marx and Engels, that there are just only two classes in the society, the bourgeois and then the proletariat. The bourgeois are the elite people, no? The capitalists, mga dato, while the proletariat are the working classes, the poor. So if you have to look at the percentage, of course, I guess the elite, the population of the capitalists would only reach up to 10 to 20% of the entire population, while the working classes or the poor would reach up to 80% in numbers. So the only way to wipe out the perverted, crooked system where the capitalists reign in the society, it would only through revolution. So after the revolution, we will go back to zero. So that's where communism will start. So then by then there will be a state, a sovereignty, a sovereign leader. Sila mo'y mag-control sa will foresee the production, and then they will control the government, control the distribution of goods, the production of goods. So the people, the role of the people, they will work for the state, and in return they will be given by the state according to their needs. Let's say for example, imong trabaho is construction worker, and then it's dool ra pud nimo ang imong trabahoan, or let's say you are an IT technician. So of course you need a computer, you need those relevant needs ang ihatag sa imuha. Like for example, if you are at the other end, if you're an engineer, you will be given those things that you need, a car in order for you to go from a project to a project. So that's where that's communism. So the equality here, people are given shares according to what to their needs. But the difference here is that, I guess the thing in here is that it is not an effective policy for economics. That's why China, I guess, has opted from a communist form of economic policy into a mixed one. It would be either capitalism or whatsoever. And if you're gonna look at the situation at North Korea, where they the leader, the supreme leader, hold the nation, the state, in isolation for how many years already? For decades, I guess, for centuries already. They hold the nation in isolation. That it should be dependent according to their production, like farming, agriculture, fishery. So mag-rely lang sila sa production sa nation. So they will not rely to trade to other nations, asking for help from other nations. So the situation in North Korea is kinda, I don't know, it's kinda, unique, and somehow ma-pride ka, it will not seek help to will not seek help to foreign nation. That's why it's not a member to United Nations now. That is why they are not subject to international laws, because they would not adhere to the United Nations. Let's say for example now, when famine strike North Korea and their productions, agricultural productions are not enough to feed their people, it was then that they declared that their country is in need of help. But somehow mapayat na gyapon sila, because afterwards, although the United Nations have already sent them help, but still they did not open the nation still to the other nations. And also those most privileged members of the population are those in military service. So that's why empowered yung ilang military or ilang military personnels, because they are the one having given priority, while the others, the farmers, the workers, remain at their level. So now I will introduce you to John Rawls, which is our focus for this discussion. He was born on February 21, 1921 at Baltimore, Maryland. United States. He died on November 24, 2002 at Lexington, Massachusetts. He is an American political and ethical philosopher, best known for his defense of egalitarian liberalism and his major work, A Theory of Justice, in 1971. He is widely considered the most important political philosopher of the 20th century. So in his Theory of Justice, he defends the conception of justice as fairness. He holds that an adequate account of justice cannot be derived from utilitarianism. Like, have the majority concept, because that doctrine is consistent with intuitively undesirable forms of government in which the greater happiness of a majority is achieved by neglecting the rights and interests of a minority. So it's a no-no for him neglect ang rights and interests of the minority, because the concept of utilitarianism was to educate them to join the majority. But still, it's a form of it's a neglection to their interests, rights, and wants. So that's a no-no for him. So his definition, a contemporary definition of justice, is that individuals should be treated the same unless they differ in ways that are relevant to the situation in which they are involved. So this is really what justice, or the contemporary definition of justice, because you will be treated equally, but that would depend upon your needs. So if you are as I said earlier, if you are only a construction worker, why do you need a car? And then of course those who are in need of car will be given a car. That is the concept for communism. But in our sense, according to your level, if you are a teacher, then you will be given a wage according to a teacher. If you are an engineer, you will be given a wage, a salary according to what is the wage of an engineer, and so forth. So that is, you will be treated the same, you will be given the same rights, you are subject to the same laws, and the only thing that we have challenges and struggles is our perverted leaders, and crooked system. Magdepende sa power, sa kwarta, o sa influensya. So let's say for example, if Jack and Hill both do the same work and there are no relevant differences, like this nabay kapansanan ng usa, but wala relevant differences between them or the work they're doing, then in justice they should be paid the same wages, same naman sila work. But if Jack is paid more than Hill simply because he is a man or because he is white, according to discrimination of race or gender, then we have an injustice. A form of discrimination because of race and sex are not relevant to normal work in situations. So let's continue with the different type of justice, since we already talked about a general and particular. So retributive justice, this is rectificatory, as I said earlier. Commutative justice refers to the extent to which punishments are fair and just. Let's say for example, death penalty for stealing food. Is stealing of food enough for you to be punished with death penalty? So that's injustice. It is not equal. I guess only for serious and heinous crime, for raping, for murder, for according to the standards of capital punishments from other nations, and even us, we have adopted that before in the time of Estrada, I guess, as far as I can remember. It should qualify to the crime, to the level of the crime should have its corresponding punishment. Stealing is not enough for death penalty. Stealing for food because of hunger, unless if he corrupted billions of money, that's, I guess, punishable by death if we have that particular sentence here. While compensatory justice refers to the extent to which people are fairly compensated for their injuries by those who have injured them. Just compensation is proportional to the loss inflicted on a person. Let's say for example, insurance for mine or construction workers, because there are companies now although their workers got injured or got the I don't know, or injury during work hours and in the compound, they will refuse to provide financial assistance or their responsibility because in the first place they took the job according to their own risk. So that's a no, that's an injustice. And the other example is this. Let's say for example nakabangga ka and ang imong nabanggaan nagka-injury and you will just hit and run, and that's a no, because that's an injustice in the society. You have to render justice to the person you inflicted an injury because it was your fault in the first place. Alright, so this is the sequence of the situation of John Rawls' theory of justice. So the stability of the society lies on justice. So as I said, the three, distributive justice, equal distribution. The other one, there is a retributive justice, of punishments are fair and just. And third, there should be a compensatory justice. So let's continue. So those three justice should exist in the society. That's a must according to John Rawls. Because if those justice, one of those justice will not be, or will not be executed, or one of the people, because in the society, in order for the society to remain at peace, to remain in order, justice should reign. Because if there's no justice even in one person, like there's a murder, so that's an injustice, and a retributive justice has not been executed to the person who committed the murder, then that's an injustice. So if that will happen in the society, that becomes rampant in the whole nation. Let's say for example in the Philippine context, there are many killings even just in the province of Negros Oriental. So that would cause inflict fear for people living in the province, because you can be killed at any time if you will involve yourselves to politics. Let's say for example the cause of death of the person, of the murder, is his political color or political criticism ng komentaryo against the opponent, let's say for example like that. And after a few months or years of doing such work, he got killed. Let's say that's the motive is for political. Then the people in the community will no longer have the freedom of speech to talk their stand, their opinion about politics, because they fear that they might get murdered or killed because of political standing, political color, or political opinion. So if this injustice will remain in the society, then there is social unrest. It might be emotional or psychological unrest, but that is still unrest. Disturbances, we are all disturbed. And if there is this injustice, let's say for example distributions of land, I'm not particular, I'm not really sure about the happening in the Hacienda Luisita, but if those land being fought by farmers, by those who deserve to own the land, if it will not be distributed, of course there will be strife as well. There will be protest because they were not given justice that they deserve. So this is the flow of the situation in channels of justice. So human beings are all equal in this respect. They all have the same dignity, and in virtue of this dignity they deserve to be treated as equals. That is according to Kant, remember. So since we are all equal in dignity and in virtue of this dignity, then we should be equal. So if individuals are treated unequally on the basis of characteristics that are arbitrary, random, or personal whim, or irrelevant, those sex, gender, race, their fundamental human dignity is violated, and that would cause the society to be chaotic. So justice then is a central part of ethics and should be given due consideration in our moral lives. So before doing an action, evaluate it first if you are treating the other person equally. So this is somehow the essence or the importance or the significance of the work of John Rawls about achieving justice or morality in the society, because morality at its purpose is to achieve the highest good of individuals, summum bonum, the highest good of the society. So when you say highest good of the society, that would of course, the society will remain peaceful, will remain free, will remain equal, will remain just. So justice is one of the central components of achieving this united and peaceful society. So that is why it has been a central core of the study of John Rawls in order for the society, the problem of the society, why we have social unrest, why we have social chaos, social strife, and you know, a lot of, like, in some form, anarchy na pagkagubot sa palibot, or even in the whole nations. So if that will take place, then this very foundation that we are fighting for, unity, for equality, for freedom, for peace, this will just be vanished in seconds, or in no time. Wala rin siya kalit that we're fighting for if we cannot remain, or if we cannot stand, and we cannot fight, if we cannot let justice reign in our society. So make no mistake, the justice is very important and playing a vital role in making the society in harmony, at peace, and equal. And that is the very reason many are suffering, especially the poor, especially the underprivileged, especially the marginalized and the impoverished masses, because injustice happened or happening here and there and everywhere. And this nation, or this government, will never be close to perfect, or will never be close to a great government, unless this problem on justice and this perverted justice system will not be addressed. So as a conclusion, justice is an expression of our mutual recognition of each other's basic dignity. So this is our mutual recognition. It's like an agreement that a mutual agreement that we do not require a payment, and an acknowledgement that if we are to live together in an interdependent community, we must treat each other as equals. Alright, so we end here our discussion. So thank you so much, class, for listening, and hopefully you will study this one and prepare for a quiz. Daghang salamat, o maayong gabi, maayong hapon, or maayong mudto, or maayong buntag. God bless.